Hey, what's up guys? Today, I'll show you a supernatural horror film, Cracked. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The film begins in New York. Ruja is a widowed mother. She's in despair after ending a phone call to get financial help for her daughter, Rachel, who is on the verge of being blind if she doesn't get surgery. Ruja wipes her tears as she hears Rachel asking if she'll be blind. She reassures Rachel that she will not let that happen. Later that night, Ruja cannot stop crying while thinking of a way to save Rachel. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door, so she checks through the peephole and recognizes Chai, her father's friend/attorney. He tells her that she needs to return to Thailand, which she contemplates before coming to bed with Rachel. As she turns around to face her daughter, Ruja faces a ghost of an old woman, screaming to her not to return. Ruja wakes from the nightmare and realizes she's back at her childhood house. Although everything is blurry, Rachel is still fascinated by her mother's old home. They are strolling the place on their own when a door suddenly opens before Rachel. She enters the room, and seconds later, Ruja joins her as they stare at a family painting of young Ruja with her parents. Ruja takes Rachel to leave the room and clarifies that they just need to stay for a few days. Chai arrives with the maid and asks Ruja to accompany him to her father's studio. Ruja refuses to be away from Rachel, but the maid reassures Ruja that Rachel will be fine. Ruja asks the maid to be careful as Rachel has eye problems. After that, she comes with Chai to the studio, which is in the woods. Everything is covered with white linen, including the two paintings Chai presents, revealing a gorgeous woman in different positions. The first painting has the woman staring at the viewers, with a snake crawling on her neck. It was made by Ruja's father 20 years ago and was sold to one of his fans for several million. However, the owner killed his family and left a note under the painting before committing suicide, saying, "I'm returning you to your creator." Meanwhile, a millionaire will pay a fortune for the second artwork. Chai needs her permission first, but Ruja asks him when they will get the money. This shocks Chai, as Ruja doesn't even bother to ask how her father died. Simultaneously, the maid asks Rachel about her grandma, to which she replies her grandma died from cancer, confusing the maid. She believes that Rachel's grandma hung herself, but Rachel doesn't even know the word hang. At this time, Chai informs Ruja that her father, Pekorn, hung himself in the studio using a beam above the paintings. Chai asks Ruja to forgive her father, but Ruja ignores the comment. So Chai suggests contacting his art restorer son to fix the cracks in the paintings before it's reselling. Meanwhile, while staring out the window, someone wraps a red scarf on Rachel. The maid seems shocked and frightened as she removes the scarf from Rachel and claims she will wash it first. Back to Ruja, she asks Chai to help sell the house after her father's funeral. While waiting for Ruja, Rachel follows a noise, thinking it's her mother. She opens a door and sees white clothing caught in between another door. She reaches for it when Ruja suddenly calls her, causing the clothing to retreat back inside. Later that night, the maid goes into the dark woods, ties the red scarf to the stairs in front of the house, and prays that she'll be left in peace. However, an intense burst of wind is suddenly felt, followed by a mysterious appearance in the windows. The maid rushes out of there in fear when something trips her. She looks down and finds the red scarf wrapped around her ankle. Later that night, while combing Rachel's hair, Ruja explains that she cannot see her father's paintings as they're frightening. It then flashes a memory of Ruja, asking her mother why she let Pekorn paint her in a presumably agonizing position. As they lie in bed, Rachel embraces her mother, thinking she's crying because of the grandpa's death. Late at night, Ruja wakes up without Rachel beside her, prompting her to search the house immediately. She finds Rachel in her old room when something suddenly grabs Rachel's foot. Ruja rushes to her daughter, but the door closes on its own, with her hand in between. Ruja forcefully takes it out, causing the skin to rip off. Ruja wakes from the nightmare and realizes that Rachel is gone. She searches the house and the backyard, but still cannot find her. So she gets help from the maid, and together they explore the forest. Although she doesn't want to see the paintings again, Ruja checks the studio and sees someone in the dark corner, hiding in white linen. Ruja believes it's Rachel and asks her to stop playing. The person stands up, and the fear kicks in as Ruja realizes it's an entity. It suddenly charges at her and wraps her in the white linen. Ruja attempts to free herself, but fails when someone suddenly wraps their hands around her eyes. Ruja screams in fear as she desperately removes the linen and calms herself before continuing to look for Rachel. Meanwhile, Rachel's wandering the forest alone, looking at the tall trees, unaware of a cobra nearby. Someone suddenly grabs her away before she can step on it. Later, Ruja finally finds Rachel on the back of a young man. The man introduces himself as Chai's son named Tim, who's supposed to come here to fix the painting. Ruja scolds Rachel for wandering the forest alone, but Rachel claims that the woman in the red scarf was with her. Ruja's voice loudens as she castigates Rachel for lying, but Ruja dismisses that and returns to the house. As the maid returns to the kitchen, Ruja notices her walking limply, with clothing wrapped around her ankle. The maid explains that it's a sprain. Ruja questions Tim about being in the woods, so he clarifies that he paints landscapes, and Che has mentioned the stream behind the house. Ruja expresses her gratitude for saving Rachel. Ruja asks about the length of restoring the paintings, so Tim explains that it depends on the damages. Later that day, Tim drives to the studio to examine the paintings when something catches his attention. There's a box on the floor containing pictures of women tied sexually. Tim turns around and hears a noise, but he notices something on the artwork. Despite the pouring rain, Tim rushes back to the house and convinces Ruja to come to the studio. At the studio, Tim shows her the cracks in the paintings. Tim removes a small portion of the smaller artwork, and to their shock, they see something painted underneath. Tim suggests removing the first painting, as they might sell it at a higher value if they discover something. However, Ruja doesn't care and instructs him to fix the paintings. Tim changes the subject and brings up the Mona Lisa painting. It says that her gaze will follow a person once they lock their eyes on hers. Ruja tries it out with the painting with Tim's encouragement when the eyes suddenly move to look straight at her. She stumbles in shock and fear, but calms herself and tells Tim to fix the paintings as soon as possible. A portrait falls to the ground as she returns to the house. Ruja looks up before going upstairs, where she sees the maid dressing Rachel in her old white dress. Ruja furiously castigates the maid for letting her daughter play with dirty clothes and asks her to burn them all. She takes Rachel and puts her in her old room. She goes to the bathroom, where she reminisces about herself in that old white dress, while standing in front of the house in the woods. She's holding a portrait of her when blood suddenly drops on it and her dress. Ruja looks up, only to find a snake on the roof. She stumbles in the bathroom as she hallucinates the snake on the sink. She returns to the room after hearing Rachel's screams and finds her hugging her knees. She tells about someone under the bed, so Ruja checks underneath when she sees someone moving the curtains. The windows and doors suddenly slam shut, but she dismisses that as she sees someone with Rachel. Ruja walks near the bed, where she finds a woman holding Rachel's eyes. A snake suddenly emerges from the woman's face and enters Rachel's eye holes. The red scarf suddenly wraps around Ruja's neck, causing her to scream as she sees the woman steal Rachel. Shortly after, the red scarf frees Ruja, so she goes to the bedside and finds Rachel unconscious, but has her eyes. She takes Rachel downstairs, where Tim stops from leaving because of the rain. He calms her and gives Rachel a magical anklet from a tribal village in the hills, since he believes that the jingling sound it makes can chase the demons away. While Rachel is asleep, Tim shares that he wanted to be an artist, but he stopped after finding out that his dad hired the buyers. Since then, Tim has decided to work with his father instead. After hours, Ruja wakes up, not realizing that she has fallen asleep. Ruja takes Rachel with her to the studio and asks Tim to drive them. However, Tim pleads with Ruja to look at the paintings before they leave, so Ruja agrees. Ruja sits Rachel on a chair facing the door, so she will not see the paintings. He shows her the ripped-off part of the painting, showing a man's face, and apologizes as his curiosity ruined the artwork. They recognize the man as the previous owner of the painting, who committed suicide. Tim wants to rip off the whole painting to reveal the truth. Nevertheless, Ruja tells him it's neither of their business and asks him to drive them. Tim drives away from the studio, but they're not that far when the car suddenly stops. Tim attempts to start it on again, while Rachel stares out the window, watching a woman emerge from the woods. Suddenly, the same woman appears from the roof, breaking the window with her head. Ruja turns around as she hears Rachel scream, only to find the backseat empty. They search for Rachel in the woods, when Ruja sees her daughter being taken by a woman. Ruja follows them, forgetting about Tim, but the red scarf wraps around her ankle and drags her away. Ruja finds herself in the abandoned house, but she leaves in a hurry after hearing Rachel calling out to her. Ruja follows Rachel's voice, leading her to find the maid holding Rachel, ready to push her into the pit. The maid seems frightened as she apologizes to Ruja that if she doesn't push Rachel into the pit, the thing will never leave her in peace. The scene then returns to the night when the maid went into the abandoned house. It turns out the vengeful woman's ghost has instructed her to kill them in exchange for her life. Ruja calms the maid and pleads with her to let Rachel go, but the maid doesn't listen and pushes Rachel. Fortunately, Tim hits the maid, causing her to fall into the pit instead of Rachel. They return to the studio, where Ruja keeps Rachel facing the door, not the paintings. She takes a pair of scissors to rip the paintings, but Tim stops her. Suddenly, the lights flicker and Rachel's voice turns demonic as she levitates in the air with the chair. In tears, Ruja realizes it's not Rachel anymore. The spirit blames Ruja and her evil family for what she has become. The cracks worsen until it rips into pieces, showing the paintings underneath. Rachel suddenly attacks her mother, so Tim immediately stops her, but Rachel throws her with one arm. Ruja slaps Rachel hard, causing her to lose consciousness. But when Ruja wakes her up, Rachel is back to her old self. Tim calls her attention as he notices something from the paintings. The woman in the red scarf is shown hanging, with a child holding her feet like it's trying to help her not to choke. The same woman from the second painting is shown with 3 topless men staring at her sexy body. The lights flicker again as the woman comes into life and attacks them. As Ruja stumbles, Che enters the studio, confused after seeing her and the ruined paintings. Ruja shivers as she pleads to be taken away from that place with her daughter, but Tim knocks them unconscious. Then, a flashback shows a young Ruja watching from afar as her father laughs at his mistress' misery. She will do anything for him to love her again. Ruja wakes up tied with a nozzle around her neck while Chai is tied. Tim pulls out his gun before ordering his father to tell him about the paintings. Scared for his life, Che starts the storytelling. After a crazy night of partying, Pekorn chooses 2 close friends to stay with to show them his mistress wrapped stylishly with a rope with only the red scarf. Pekorn's friends, including Chai, remove their tops before joining the mistress, cowering her with their huge figures and staring at her beauty. One friend is so fascinated that he buys the artwork, but then dies with his entire family. Tim reveals he is at the man's house the night he killed his family and himself. He confesses that he's not Che's real son and that he had killed Che's son by showing the corpse with a knife in the neck. Che screams in agony after seeing his son, but Tim tells him to apologize to his mother before slashing his neck. After that, Tim faces the painting with a child in it as he reminisces about the events. He is young and talented as an artist and uses landscapes to draw. One day, Ruja finds him and gives him artwork supplies before asking him to draw her. They immediately become friends, and Ruja even shows the sketch to her mother, who's unhappy to see it. After realizing who has done it, Ruja's mother instructs the maid and an old man who knows black magic to throw dead snakes at the mistress' house. The next day, Ruja finds the snakes on the roof and runs away when she runs into her mother. She brainwashes Ruja that the mistress and her son are bad people, but if they pretend not to see them, they can't hurt them. One day, Ruja sneaks into the studio while her father fulfills his fetish. The sex game with his mistress doesn't turn him on anymore, so he wraps her in ropes and hangs her from the ceiling. Seeing her in that state, Pekorn is inspired to paint another masterpiece. While his mistress is quivering for her life, Pekorn is still focusing on his painting. However, Tim is also there, following his mother. He immediately rushes to her and holds her feet up so she will not choke. He repeatedly calls out to his dad, Pekorn, to help his mother. However, Pekorn has gone completely mad and continues to paint, ignoring his pleas for help. Tim knows that Ruja is there, so he asks for her help, but Ruja stands stunned. However, Ruja pretends not to see them until her mother arrives to take her away. After the mistress dies, the maid and Che toss her and Tim into the pit, leaving him to die. Tim tells Ruja, his half-blood sister, how they could have helped him and his mother, but she and her mother chose to run away. However, Tim escaped and survived and returned to avenge his mother. Tim shows a nozzle before saying to Ruja that she will now feel the pain of seeing her loved one tortured and killed, knowing she can't do anything to save them. Ruja repeatedly apologizes, but this only angers Tim more, as it will not bring his mother back. So he goes to his duffel bag to take the snake out, but it suddenly bites him. Tim repeatedly shoots at it, and while he's distracted, Ruja reaches the cutter with her foot. She holds it after freeing her hand and cuts the rope just before Tim pulls the trigger. However, he attacks and chokes her, so Ruja stabs him in the legs with the cutter. Ruja recovers and drops a piece of wood on the snake as it is almost near Rachel. After that, she hits Tim with a painting before throwing gasoline on his face, burning his eyes. She then drops the artwork on him and breaks a glass of whiskey before dropping a lighter. Ruja escapes the studio with her daughter and drives away as the fire spreads. The film ends with a flashback of an old Pekorn staring at his artwork, when the red scarf suddenly wraps around his neck and hangs him to death to make it look like he committed suicide. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.